is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a hard show talking today's February 5th game, NBA slate. Got the usual crew here on the Monday. I'm Draft Sheet, of course, joined today, as usual, by AP and sweet Travis Mangone. We'll start with you, AP. Super Bowl week, big week for us Chiefs fans. How you doing on this Monday afternoon?
Doing well. I thought we lost you there for a little bit. I don't know if was that me or Mangone? Was that me or was that DC?
We thought the same thing. I was concerned about you, but it sounds like it was DC. So DC, you're the one that could be being a little shaky right now. So hopefully it fixes itself. But continue, AP.
Yes, a Super Bowl week though. Ton of fun. I mean, I feel very confident. I was more nervous for last year's matchup, Philly. I thought Philly a little bit more complete, a little better of a team. Tougher challenge. I think this is going to be very easy. I think Kansas City back-to-back, probably double-digit type of win. I think it's going to be kind of boring. I mean, I don't know. I just think Kansas City is going to smack them. So we'll see. But, DC, you got such a massive sweat coming. Like 2 weeks, and then you got to – do you think you got to sweat the payout, or do you think you're good there? I saw some back and forth, some tweets about it. So I'm a little out of the loop of the situation. So
payout should be good. I'm like, I don't know, 99% sure on that. There was a little bit of time there where it looked like things might escalate further with a little bit of cheating scandal going on in the NFBC, but ultimately not much else was uncovered. And yeah, they've been in business 20 years. Have never missed a payout. I think I'm good there. And it does come down to, yeah, I'm in first place out of like 2,000 teams that started. I think there's only 4 or 5 teams that can really win 150K up top. And then second place drops to 25,000 and it's like 20, 15. So I think top 3 or 4 is mostly assured. And I think I've got about a 55% chance to get first overall. Mostly comes down to Travis Kelce versus Pacheco. I've got the Pacheco side and a 7-point lead. So yeah, big sweat. It's been kind of a long wait. I'm doing a little bit of hedging, just betting like, Travis Kelce overs, Travis Kelce to score a touchdown. I'll play a bunch of Kelce in DFS, right? So if it goes wrong for me with the big sweat, hopefully can win some money back, kind of betting the other side of it. Cause that's just it's too big of a jump, for my comfort, but it's going to be a hell of a Super Bowl for me for sure. Every point that Kelce gets will be kind of like a little dagger, but I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously would be anyway, but it's fun with the big sweat.
Over under how many drinks consumed during the game? Before, after, and during? What do we put the number at? 20 and a half?
There's a chance I'll go with 0. And then
no, 0? Come on.
It won't be, I'll tell you this, it won't be 5 or 6. It'll be 0 or it'll be like 18 or 20 or something like that. So haven't decided yet. I don't know. On the big sweats, I get tilted when I start drinking and then it doesn't go my way and it just kind of can spiral. So we'll see. Haven't decided how I'll approach all that, but yeah, it's going to be a fun sweat for sure and looking forward to it. We'll go over to you. How you doing? You're in what, Taylor Swift's box there. I'll be hoping that she's not too happy, I guess, with Kelsey's performance on Sunday. But how you doing on this Monday afternoon?
Yeah, I'm good. Still rooting on the Niners. I'll admit I haven't placed a ton on it yet or anything, but I still think I'll be rooting them on. I think it's gonna be a great game. I'm excited for it. The week is finally here. It set in that football is like kind of over when I saw one of those tweets out there that said this is the first Sunday without football, since X, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a sad day, but it's okay, right? We got NBA to talk about. We had the leaderboard series this week. That was a lot of fun, and excited to dive into some of the NBA games here. Guys are going to start sitting a bunch. That's the one thing I've been kind of taking away, that things are going to get crazy here, and we just got to be on top of things, and we surely will.
Yeah, we talked about that on Friday. Kind of approaching the All-Star break here. We got I think 7 or 8 more days of NBA before that. We'll see some shenanigans leading up to the All-Star break. Trade deadline is coming up too, I believe. I don't know the exact date of that, but that will throw a wrench into things. And then, of course, post All-Star break NBA gets pretty crazy, as we know. But then, hey, we got baseball coming up. I'm super excited for that, obviously, as a huge baseball guy. So sports schedule continues to march on with or without the NFL. And with that, let's get into today's 6-game NBA slate. We'll go game by game as usual. Starting with we'll go by the DraftKings order of games. So we'll start with the Lakers, Charlotte Hornets. Injury news: LaMelo Ball, Gordon Hayward remain out for Charlotte, and then Cody Martin and Frank Ntilikina are questionable. I think Cody Martin news is pretty significant on this slate, given all the guys that Charlotte kind of is already missing. On the Lakers side, Anthony Davis, LeBron James are questionable. Judging by the line, Lakers favored by 12.5 here. I kind of think they're going to play, at least one of them, probably both AP. 226 total. And then I guess for the Charlotte Hornets, I guess big story. We've been kind of on top of it too. Rookie Brandon Miller has been on fire recently. He looks awesome to me. Just watching the way he plays, and then finally kind of getting more of an opportunity with the guys out for Charlotte has certainly seen his game elevate. I'm interested in him tonight. But curious where you stand, AP, Charlotte and Lakers, to kick us off.
Yeah, I expect the big dogs from LA to play tonight. Anthony Davis, LeBron James, such an amazing spot for AD, underpriced at 9.9. I mean, I put a core play tag on him. When you look at the spend up options, there's a lot of good spend up options, but he grades out for me as one of the best ones in this matchup, which is extremely favorable for how he plays, bigs against this Hornets team. We saw a little change. So the other thing too is why I think they play is Lakers just need to get going. They need wins, and they got some nice momentum on the road here, coming off 2 wins, surprising win over Boston when AD and LeBron sat, and then they went in to the Garden and got a win there. So I think they come in here. The spread is indicative of that too, of both of them playing. And there was a lineup change that they made. They started Rui Hachimura. And when that happened, I ended up bumping Rui, and I was slightly overweight relative to the field, and it was crazy. This is how it goes. Likely motivated Taurean Prince, and Prince, had that backup role, but ended up playing more minutes and was far more productive than the starter Hachimura. We have awesome value later on in the slate, and so I am not even worrying about Prince, Hachimura, or what I'm doing with this crappy forward value. Just give me all of the AD and I'll move on, and I'll feel very, very good about that. On the other side, you're right. I mean, Brandon Miller has just he's been a stud. He's been incredible. He gets blowout run. What else? The other thing about the Hornets is we know what their rotation is. I would say, and it's a little different, but in football, when we talk about that target tree, I would say for the Hornets, like their usage tree, if we want to call it that, where production's going to come from, is pretty defined right now. We know Bryce McGowan's isn't going to do anything. Ish Smith is like dusty. I'm so tilted. And again, hindsight's always 20/20, but I'm not changing my process or what I would have done with Ish Smith. But he is getting old. He is getting dusty for sure. We know it's Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, and then potentially like a PJ Washington off the bench. I think they're going to need size. I think they're going to need kind of that traditional big down at the 5. And so I think it's a better spot for Nick Richards on this slate. But PJ Washington in tournaments, I'm sure I'll have a few shares. But really, it's Brandon Miller. You can play. I liked him a little bit more previously because you could play him at the shooting guard or small forward spot. I do think that matters. He's small forward only now in DraftKings, still very, very much in play on the slate. But we have a lot of lead options at this forward spot. So I don't consider him an absolute lock. I think he's a good play, but not entirely a lock for me. So by far in this game, AD my favorite play.
Makes sense. Yeah, AD should have his way there against Charlotte. Obviously, especially if Brown sits, but I do think both guys end up playing Mangone. Yeah, I do agree with AP. I don't think Brandon Miller at 6,800, I wouldn't call him a lock either, but I do think the upside is really high for him and Bridges. If you look at kind of how to attack the Lakers, they allow a ton of 3-pointers against them. Both Miller and Bridges on this offense right now, kind of just firing away at will. They just don't have a lot of offensive options. So pretty interested in the Charlotte side. And, if one of Bron or AD ends up sitting, several Lakers could come into play too. Could be a pretty good first game of the night, Mangone. What are your thoughts here, Charlotte and LA?
Yeah, obviously, if LeBron or AD sits, it's going to shake things up. You will know that news. I'm not going to speculate. You just never know with the Lakers. So I'm really only interested in like a LeBron or a Davis as a contrarian spend. It would probably be Davis if I had to pick one. That's really where I'm at with the Lakers. Some of these guys are priced up for some of the scenarios that we've had recently with these guys out. If you look at the other options on Charlotte, we got Cobra in the chat says, Bridges have been cheeks. I've talked about this and why I don't like playing Bridges as much because, dude, Bridges is one. He's pretty expensive. And if they get blown out, sure, he could lose minutes. And for the most part, he still gets most of his minutes. But, like, if they get destroyed and they're losing, like, 90 to 69, well, that's really hard for Bridges to pay off his tag at 8-2. It's a lot easier for Miller to pay his tag at 6'9", in my opinion, or 6'8". And Miller's been great. You guys were on it early on. We've talked about it, all the shows constantly. You can play Brandon Miller. I don't think he is a bad play. I think he is in the conversation. So, yeah, I don't think he's a bad play at all. We obviously need to know the news on Cody Martin. That's going to be important. If Cody Martin's out, we assume Ish Smith slides in the starting lineup, 3.6K. In this matchup, I wouldn't ignore it, right? This is a good matchup. If you told me he played 26 minutes against the Lakers at 3.6K, I wouldn't ignore it. The only reason I would kind of think about not playing him is look at some of these mid-tier guys. I talk about it every show. Like guys like Brandon Miller just drops 52. He can break the slate, right? There's just a lot of good mid-tier guys because the way the algorithm is. I mean, Brandon Miller's price went down after a big performance. Just there are a lot of mid-tier guys that maybe it leads me to not load up on the cheap options. Yes, you need value, but this doesn't mean I need to play like two studs and just load up values everywhere. That's one thing I'll definitely think a little bit about when rostering teams. So Ish Smith is fine. I got lucky and faded him the other day on my main team and it worked out. But yeah, it's hard to do it again, I'd say. It's definitely a good spot. If Cody Martin's out, I am going to consider Ish Smith, especially against the Lakers matchup against guards. It's just a really good spot to look at. And I'm not excited about the PJ Washingtons and Nick Richards. I know they have upside there, but one reason I didn't love Isaiah Hartenstein the other day, the more I had looked at it, was, dude, the Anthony Davis matchup is not easy, right? It's not like it's going to be, you have to spend a lot of your energy trying to defend him. You can get into foul trouble. There's just a lot of paths where it doesn't work out as well. So that's another thing I kind of think of when I'm rostering big men against Anthony Davis, just like when we talk about playing big men against the Wizards, right? We want to do that. We want to play guys against them because it's just a great matchup. Obviously, AD is a little bit of a tougher matchup. And you have to use a lot of your energy on him on the defensive end.
Yeah, makes sense there. I'll just one more point on Miller. The Lakers allow the most above the break 3-point makes of any team in the league, dead last in that category. Miller last 3 or 4 games, kind of in this new role, shooting 9 3-point attempts from above the break per game, which is about 4th or 5th in the NBA during that time period. So I think a really good individual matchup for Miller. If you're a believer in him, like I am, I do think this is a pretty good spot for him to come through. And I'm with you, Mangone. If Martin is out and Ish Smith gets to start, it's going to be hard for me to pass that up. 3,600. Lakers, one of the worst teams against point guards anyway. I'll probably take the bait on Ish Smith at that price point. Next game on the night is Dallas and Philadelphia. It's a short and kind of quick slate here. This is one of 3 games in the early 7 p.m. lock window. This one expected to be close. Dallas favored by 3, really high total, sitting at 243. Of course, Embiid is out for this game and probably going to be out a while, frankly, with torn meniscus it looks like for Embiid. So we've seen Maxey obviously have some big games. Tobias Harris has gone off at times. D'Anthony Melton also out for Philly along with Nick Batum. So plenty of opportunity for the remaining Philly guys. We'll see with Tobias Harris, questionable with an illness. So potentially a really, really big spot for Maxey and the remaining Philadelphia dudes. And then it does look like Dallas should be mostly healthy for this one, or at least Luka and Kyrie both expected to play. Dante Exum out, and Derek Lively is also out. We'll start with UAP, Dallas, Philadelphia. What do you got?
Yeah, Max. So I talked about AD, my favorite stud as far as spinning up goes. I think Maxey's my number 2, 90 to 100. I mean, I want to buy I want to buy low on him before kind of the field catches up. He's coming off, obviously it's just such a tough spot for Philly with the Embiid situation. I think Maxey's a stud. Put up a 60 piece against Utah, much better matchup. And then the Nets. I mean, when you look at the Nets, they're a bunch of wings. I felt like that matchup was just bad for Philly without a big like Embiid in there. If they had Embiid, it's the opposite. It's a bad matchup for the Nets, but they handled him and they handled Maxey. Maxey struggled 8 for 23. But again, I'm looking at the numbers and the upside and the potential, the opportunity there, and the 37% usage rate. The ball's in his hands, like a lot. That's not going to change. And now we get a backcourt of Kyrie and Luka. We know, we haven't seen Kyrie and Luka in there for a while. It's been a lot of Luka, or when Luka was hurt, it was Kyrie. And the thing about it is when it's just one of them, they can put another defensive piece in there. Derek Jones Jr. with Josh Green and Grant Williams. And they can kind of hide Kyrie and Luka defensively a little bit. Not going to be the case when they're both playing. It just sets up for a nice offensive game. And I like this matchup a lot better for Tyrese Maxey. So he's my second favorite stud on the slate. I'm expecting a bounce back game from him. Keep an eye on Tobias Harris. He's questionable, and I don't believe he practiced. He has an illness, but again, if it's just an illness, they need Tobias to play if they want any chance in this game. And I mean, it's the NBA. Maybe a Tyrese Maxey could carry him, but if they're without Tobias Harris, this is going to be another spot against a Mavs team that when Luka and Kyrie play, they play with pace, not as good defensively, that I think we're going to want to target. So keep an eye on the Tobias news. If he plays, he's a solid play. I still prefer the matchup that Tyrese Maxey is expected to get here, and absolutely love him. I'm a little bit torn on what to do with Paul Reed and the bigs. Mainly because, I'm not fading Paul Reed at all, but I think we have some really nice center spots. We already talked about AD or power forward center, etc. Okongwu is going to be someone we talk about. Claxton. There's a lot of really strong considerations at the center spot. And so I'm not sitting here trying to jam in Paul Reed, but I'm curious to see what you guys have to say on him. And then on the other side, Luka's 12K. Luka firmly in play, even if Kyrie's playing. But we've seen this, and it seems like it's one or the other goes off. Either Kyrie goes off or Luka goes off. And you just have to wonder, Luka, he's dealing with, I don't know if it's a hip injury or whatever. I mean, he's, despite playing 40 minutes plus every single night, I mean, he's been carrying this team. Kyrie's coming in rested. I think they can push him. And at 8,500, I think that price tag is really, really intriguing. And I think people come across the situation kind of well, I don't know what to do. I'll default and play Luka, or Kyrie, or they just fade it because they're just well, it's a lot of mouths to feed when both these studs play. But I think one of them gets there, and I think it's going to be Kyrie. So I have a ton of interest in him tonight at 8,500 in this spot.
Yeah, he usually flies under the radar, does Kyrie Irving. If Luka's playing, you get why. But yeah, I mean, a great spot, I think, for Kyrie and really for Tyrese Maxey with or without Tobias Harris, Mangone. I mean, like AP mentioned, Luka, Kyrie, not great defenders. Dallas also doesn't have much rim protection. Maxey is mostly three-pointers, and then, he can get to the rim kind of at will, I think, against this Dallas team and probably finish pretty well when he does get there. So I think Maxey does make a lot of sense as a spend up. And this game really, really could pick up the pace, be back and forth, little defense. Certainly a good game to target. Your thoughts here, Mangone?
Yeah, so my hope is I hope Tobias Harris plays. And if Tobias Harris plays at 7-4, I'm interested. And maybe that keeps the ownership down a little bit. Maybe people don't want to get to him because they see the tag and maybe they go to Brandon Miller instead. I think it's a great spot for someone like Tobias Harris. So I won't ignore him if he is in at 7.4K. Again, it feels steep, but the dude's been printing when Embiid has been out. So I'm definitely interested in him. We'll have to see, though. Maxey, obviously a really good play, especially if Tobias is out. 9-1. I like him, but again, I don't know if I need to spend my money that way. There's other studs I can spend for sure. I talk about this all the time. Once you hit that 9K threshold, you do have to do a lot to kind of break the slate and pay off your tax. There's a lot of different studs that you can get in there. I never really play Kyrie in these spots. I understand it. I think no one's going to play him, right? It's low owned, so I understand the take on it. Just probably won't be for me. And then when it comes to some of these other Philadelphia options, we know Embiid is out, right? He's out for a while. Paul Reed is 6'2". Is 6'2" a decent price to go for him? I mean, I don't know. I think it's fine, but I want to know what the ownership's going to be. I think that's a really big conversation point. Right now, I am not excited about him. There's other centers that I'd rather get to, but I could understand at that price, right? He has the ability to get you 40. There's no rim protection for Dallas that you're scared of. So I don't think Paul Reed's the craziest tournament play if he is low owned. But I really want to key in on the Sixers side of the ball. It's really keying in on Tobias and Maxey, depending on the news. And then on the Dallas side of the ball, it's really just Luka for me if I have the salary. And I think we have the cheap options that we can get to afford Luka, but I don't think Luka's like a jam in like he has been. I think the past probably 10 days or 2 weeks, he's just been like a jam every single day. I don't think he's a jam at this price. And with Kyrie Irving back, I still think he's a solid play, but just not a stone cold lock. And I think people are just going to plug him in like they have been. And I'm going to think a little bit about it at least.
Yeah, I usually don't play either Luka or Kyrie when they're both in there, which frankly doesn't happen all that often. But we'll see tonight. 12K for Luka feels like a lot to me. I'm kind of with UAP. I think I'd rather lean toward the cheaper Kyrie if going in that direction. But we'll see how all the news shakes out. It does seem like a pretty good day for a mostly balanced build to me. But obviously a lot of news to come before we can say that definitively. Let's get to the last game in this 7 Eastern time window. It is Sacramento and Cleveland. Cleveland favored by 3.5 in this one, 234 total. Waiting on injury news for the Cavs side on both Jared Allen and Darius Garland. Both questionable to play in this one. Obviously, we'll have this news, before lock. So we'll throw it to you, AP. Your thoughts here on Sacramento and Cleveland.
Yeah, so on the Cleveland side, man, they're getting healthy. I like the matchup, but Evan Mobley pulling them up 23 minutes. I mean, he absolutely smashed in those 23 minutes. But again, that was against the Spurs. 6,800, the price tag's nice, but if we're getting 25 minutes or less, I just can't play him. He's so capped. And same with Garland. But the other thing it does is it takes away from opportunity for guys like Allen, Donovan Mitchell and stuff. So it's a tricky situation here. And how I tackle this, because I don't want to full fade. I'm full fading Garland and Mobley, but I don't want to full fade Donovan Mitchell, even Max Strus in multi-entry formats, and Jared Allen, Karis LeVert as well. I set a team rule, so I have my base rule of 3 max from any one team. And then I go through to the team section and I just individually uncheck. And what I'll do is make it so it's 1 max only from the Cavs. And that's just kind of how I'm going to play this situation. I want that isolated person to come out trying to get that optimal score from it could be like a Donovan Mitchell, or maybe Max Strus gets hot, from range. We haven't seen that in a while, but maybe it happens. So again, I don't like the Cavs. And honestly, in hindsight, when I'm looking at my exposure, there's a good chance that I have little to none. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Donovan Mitchell, pretty intriguing here. But again, I don't think anyone in this spot is a priority that I want to build around on the Cavs side. On the Kings, so it's kind of interesting. You got this battle between Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter, and their prices are down. I don't like this spot against the Cavs for a Kevin Huerter. I think a Malik Monk's a better option, but at 5,400, we have there's so many other options, especially in the Nets in the next Nets game, and then even the Warriors like Brandon Podziemski. It's kind of an awkward spot, so I'm leaving Monk in my player pool. I'm most likely fading Kevin Huerter. I like what I'm seeing from Monk, but again, not a guy I'm going to get a ton of. The reason I like him in this matchup is at least offensively, he can create his own shot. He's a streaky player. And right now he's been streaking in the right direction. He's been on fire. So Malik Monk, a few shares for me, not a priority, but just a few shares. I'm curious to see what you guys are doing about Sabonis. They're going to need his size out there. I mean, do we like to target Mobley and Allen? No. But again, Sabonis, is having a monster year, and the price is up there. Obviously, I prefer Anthony Davis over him. But again, in large field tournaments, I always try to get a little bit of Sabonis because I feel like on slates like this one, 6-game slate, other options that grade out as a lot better in this range and a little bit cheaper, he just always comes in like with no ownership at all. And those type of plays can help you to win tournaments. So again, I don't like anyone in this game, but I want little bits and pieces of Monk, Sabonis, and then maybe like a Donovan Mitchell or like a YOLO shot on like a Max Strus on the other side.
Yeah, I like your approach to this game. Kind of not going too crazy on either side of the ball makes sense to me, but certainly I would expect a piece or two to get there in the end. I will say, though, this Cleveland defense, if Allen is in there, Garland, obviously they got Mobley back. When they've got Mobley and Allen, I think those are the two most important pieces by far. They become a really, really elite defense to the point where I probably won't end up going to Sabonis in that particular matchup. Obviously, he's able, could overcome it, but I'll probably go to an easier path. What about you, Mangone? What are your thoughts here, Cleveland and Sacramento?
Yeah, I mean, for one, it's definitely going to help to know the news on Allen and Garland, right? I mean, if those guys are out, and if only one is in, it's going to change some of the takes that we have. Could Donovan Mitchell become a really strong play at 9-7? Yes, against the Sacramento Kings. Could he be a good play with Garland and Allen in? Yes, and at low ownership, 100%. Like, he could be a really good play here. Even a Karis LeVert, I think at 5.3K, you can make a pretty strong case for him being an interesting option against, again, the Kings, right? The Kings are a team that you are willing to target. I do want to know how that news is going to shake out. I think that news is really important. Evan Mobley still seems like he's on that minutes limit, even though he played 24 minutes against the Spurs and dropped 48 DK points. I am not going to buy it still at 6.8. I'm okay with just waiting for that minutes limit to get up. So the Donovan Mitchell news is really crucial, though. That is something I want to know. The Sabonis stuff is interesting with what AP said because it completely flips the bill, like we talked about, right? There's just everyone is paying down right now at the center position for the most part. And now you got no Cody Martin, so I believe Ish Smith will be a play that a lot of people will get on. So the slate has changed a bit. But speaking of slates changing, the slate changed the other day when I was on the show, the Memphis news. And I ended up getting Karl-Anthony Towns on my team. Now, was Karl-Anthony Towns good? No. He was 4% owned, though, and it was a good spot in the flow chart going up against Houston. This is just like the stuff that I look for. I look for studs that have a ability to have a massive ceiling game. And Sabonis has the ability to do that at 10.1K. So I will not ignore him. I think he's interesting in flipping the build. Keegan Murray is one of those guys that I think has upside at the price. But again, the floor is really rough. So he's more of an MME guy. I think I like him more there. I know Malik Monk has looked a little bit better last 2 games. I think he could do well in this spot. Not a priority player or anything, more of a last guy in that I would consider that has a huge ceiling at the price, but not a game I'm jamming in, right? There's other spots that we have on this slate that are really strong. So I think I can mix and match plays from this game, but not going to load up on this one.
Yeah, 3 for 3, not going too crazy with Sacramento and Cleveland, barring, of course, some unexpected injury news from either team. Next up, we do have 2 games in the 7:30 Eastern time window. We'll talk about the Clippers and the Atlanta Hawks first. Obviously, one of the bigger pieces of news on this slate that we know, at least, is the injury to Clint Capella. We're going to see Okongwu slide in to the starting lineup. And, I mean, really, AP, I think he's going to play about as many minutes as he can handle, right? They just don't really have anyone else behind him to soak up many minutes. So, yeah, big opportunity for Okongwu to show what he can do. There's just no question he's underpriced at 5,100. I think he'll be one of, if not the highest owned guys on this slate. Will Okongwu, and then depending on who's else is out for Atlanta, Saddiq Bey is questionable, as is DeAndre Hunter. Potentially a really, really tight rotation here for the Atlanta Hawks. Now the matchup maybe not the best against a really good Clippers team, who should be basically fully healthy for this one. Ibaka Zubac, the only guy that we're waiting on news. He'll either split with Plumlee or it'll be the Plumlee-Tice pairing at center opposite Okongwu for the Clippers. So a little bit of news waiting for on this game, but obviously talk about what you're doing with Okongwu. I've got him, 50 to 60% owned, I think, depending on what you're playing tonight. So very highly owned. Your thoughts on him, and of course everyone else in this game. Go ahead, AP.
Yeah, the Hawks, they generally like, big on the floor at all times. It seems like Okongwu when they're running a smaller-ish type of lineup. But again, I this 5,100, you can play him at the power forward center spot. We talk about the positional flexibility and how that adds value to a play. I'm like locking Okongwu. I think this is like a lock button type of spot. I know I would guess he's going to be over 50% owned. And he's over a point per minute when he's, producer, when he's on the court. You got to think that he's going to play like 33, 34 plus minutes. Foul trouble being the one thing getting hurt being the thing that we're trying to avoid. Because then it's like, what else are they going to do? I mean, Jalen Johnson is kind of another guy that I think his minutes are much more secure. Like he's the guy that I could see playing the most minutes at the end of the night, followed closely by Okongwu. Bruno Fernando was the other guy that was popping here, but I don't trust him in the core rotation. So again, it's Okongwu for me. I think a pretty easy play. And like, how do you tackle this in multi-entry formats? Like running 50 builds or 150 or whatever. I mean, a play like this where it's just so severely underpriced, in my opinion, I just, try to lock or try to get severely overweight the field. It's like one slot that's just, you figured out, free square, whatever you want to call it, and you move on. That's how I'm handling this spot with Okongwu. And then outside of that, this Clippers team, I mean, they're playing some good ball right now. The backcourt of Trae Young, DeJounte, always tough to target. We have so many good plays at the guard position, many that we already talked about, Maxey, Kyrie, Luka, Donnie Mitch. More to talk about later on. I find myself underweight or fading Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, and just hoping when you look at the box scores at the end of the night, or watching the game, that Okongwu gets there and he's one of the main guys, and the decision was the right decision, and you move on. That's kind of how I'm tackling the Atlanta Hawks situation here. So Bruno Fernando, am I fading him? No, I want, obviously we want the starting lineup here. We want confirmation. Like we're all assuming, like I don't think it's been confirmed that Okongwu is starting, but I would assume that he does. But again, we want that confirmation because like if we got a random starting lineup where they still decided to bring Okongwu off the bench, you can make the case that maybe it changes, but my stance most likely wouldn't change there. So Okongwu going to be my guy tonight. Hey, Tobias Harris upgraded to questionable now. It was questionable and did not practice, but I think that's a good sign for Tobias and him playing tonight. On the other side, so Zubac is out. He was already on a minutes limit, so not really a factor as far as playing goes. He played 18 minutes against Miami. So yeah, Mason Plum. We like this Hawks team. We like bigs against this Hawks team. Mason Plumlee, not a guy I typically like to play or target, but the price tag is intriguing. Even with Zubac in, he played 26 minutes against Miami, 25 against Detroit, had a nice game against Detroit. I don't know. I'm torn. Like I have him graded as like a filler type of play. Curious to see where you guys are at on Mason Plumlee. And then outside of that, like Paul George, still kind of limited. The big three there are healthy. It's kind of been Kawhi Leonard or move on. We like opposing point guards against this Hawks team, against Trae Young. You could make the case for Harden, but I think more of a tournament play there.
Yeah, it'll make sense. We are getting news trickling in. As you mentioned, Zubac is out for the Clippers. I think Plumlee is interesting at 4,600, and even Daniel Tice at 3,800. Going to split those minutes with Plumlee. I don't think is the worst play just because of how good the matchup is. Centers against the Hawks, one of the very best spots to attack, and potentially even better now, missing Clint Capella. I'm not sure if that hurts them or helps them defensively against centers, but still going to struggle, I think, against the position. Regardless, let's go to you, Mangone, Clippers, and the Atlanta Hawks. What do you got?
Yeah, so the Atlanta Hawks are one of those teams I always say, like, are they playing on the slate? Yes. And should we target them? Yeah, I think we should consider it. Now, how do we target them? I think Plumlee is obviously one reason. I think he's going to be kind of chalky now. I think he's a pretty good play. Then, listen, when it comes to the studs, I don't want to play Paul George, but I think Harden is still in play at 8.7K. just because of the ceiling he has provided. It's a good match against Hawks, so I don't mind it. I think Kawhi Leonard 8-9, not a bad spend-up option that you can get to, so I don't hate him. So those two guys, they're interesting contrarian spends that I'd consider. But it's really looking at the big minutes between Plumlee and Tice. I agree with the Tice takes. Just good fantasy per minute producer. Probably plays between 16 and like 24 minutes. Now let's shift the other side of the ball and talk about those big men. I know we had someone in the chat, Steven said, could Bruno Fernando steal minutes from Okongwu? Well, it doesn't matter if he could because Okongwu is getting more minutes. He's sliding into the Clint Capella role. This is a great spot for Okongwu. So like him a lot. Bruno Fernando, you could make the case, gains more minutes, and Okongwu shifts into the Capella role, and then maybe Fernando shifts into the Okongwu role. The problem is, I do think there's downside that Okongwu just soaks up Capella's minutes and some of his own minutes, and he's just the guy and plays 36, minutes. He could play 32. He could play even 40 if he's not in foul trouble. So there is risk to a Bruno Fernando. I do think Okongwu, though, pretty much a lock kind of play. I want to play him in either power forward or the center position. I lean power forward just because I do think Plumlee is going to be a pretty strong play. You're going to want to look there, and then that leaves us with that one util spot. So I lean putting Okongwu at the forward position. When it comes to the rest of the Hawks, it's where it gets a little bit tougher. They're possibly missing Bay and Hunter. They're both questionable. News could be coming in soon. We did just get news that Evan Mobley minutes limit's going to be moved to 26. Still going to stay away from that. But we're waiting on that Bay and Hunter news. That's why I kind of looked at my phone there. I saw the notification, and I want to know what's going to happen there because if those guys miss, Jalen Johnson at 7-3, I still think can have upside games at the price. So I would not ignore him. I think he's in play. Bogdanovich minutes have been strong. You could see him have some upside games here and there, but not looking to roster him a ton. I think he's more of a last guy in. And then Jonathan Murray and Trae Young, I'm probably just going to be under on them. I'd rather play some other options that we've talked about up at the top. You can't play everyone. Those would be two guys I'd probably be more under on for this slate.
Yeah, we also got news from Charlotte. Leaky Black is starting. I'm not sure who that's for exactly. Obviously, Richards, Brandon Miller, and Bridges are starting.
I think he could start for Ish Smith, and they put Brandon Miller in the point guard role.
Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen too, which obviously just makes you at least makes me like Miller that much more. Kind of seems like they're letting Miller be the man, right? And see kind of what they truly got in him right now, which I think is a good move. And so far, he's answered the bell when called upon. So we'll see. We'll probably get that starting lineup here before the end of the show, and we can maybe revisit Charlotte if we need, given that we got the Frank Ntilikina out, Cody Martin out, and Leaky Black starting. Seems like the rest of the information should be coming soon. We'll go to.
Do you think they start Bryce McGowan's though again? I mean,
I think it's going to be Black, McGowan's, Miller, Bridges, and Richards would be my guess.
I mean, McGowan's has been terrible.
Yeah, he is terrible.
They're gonna want to put Miller at the 1, I think. Then they'd put McGowan's at the 2. They'd put Black at the 3. And then my assumption is Ish Smith still commands that role as the guy that facilitates the offense off the bench with Nick Smith Jr., right? I think it makes some sense. And then, of course, Leaky Black doesn't have to close. Leaky Black could easily not close, and they can close with whichever guy makes the most sense between Smith Jr., Ish Smith, and Leaky Black. And also, McGowan's could not close if he's terrible, right? So a lot of other guys they can go with. I think the only guys that you feel absolutely secure with are Miller's minutes, Bridges, and Richards. Those are really the only guys that you feel are confident in closing a competitive game.
So Steve Clifford said Leaky Black will start basically to match up with the size of the Lakers. So makes sense.
I mean, the usage beyond Miller and Bridges, Richards is a decent player, but not a scorer whatsoever. Leaky Black, McGowan's, Ish Smith, these guys do so little on the court. I actually think PJ Washington, I know he's going to be coming off the bench. I think he's an interesting play, another guy that can shoot it from deep, been pretty good recently. I'm in on what I consider to kind of be the big three Charlotte left, Miller, Bridges, and then I think the sneaky one is PJ Washington off the bench. I would still expect him to play I don't know, 30 to 35 minutes in a good matchup, maybe get garbage time as well. So, yeah, Charlotte, I think is very interesting and getting more interesting as the show progresses. Go ahead.
Do you think so? Just with Ish Smith, I mean, if he is starting again, I would say at that price, like coming off like an absolute bust. And again, I had a ton of them, but like we're so actionary to everything. I think if he was starting only, I think he'd be one of the best DFS potential plays on the slate, just because this matchup against the Lakers, like so good for opposing point. I think you said that, right, DC, when we're breaking down that game?
The best possible matchup for some guys, yeah.
And you're going to get him and again, he might not start, so it might be irrelevant. He'd still see the court, but I need him to be starting. Like, I think we all need him to be starting. So we might not have to worry about that.
What do you think, Mangone? Leaky Black in Falcons core? No.
Yeah, Alex with the comment of the day. So you're the winner right now in comment of the day. Yeah, I don't think Falik cores him, but I don't know. You never know. With Falik, that's one of my favorite things to do every single day is say, getting close to crunch time. If I haven't looked at it, I go, what is Falik on? Is Falik on anything reasonable? Is he would? Or sometimes I have an idea of like something that might be a little out there, and I go, is Falik on this idea? Because if he is, I'm in. I'm going to be arm in arm.
We need to get a game going. Guess Falik's core, because it's true for all sports. You never know who's going to show up in there. He does in the NFL. He does the thing where he'll like sometimes not put a quarterback in his core, which I think is just about the most ridiculous thing you can do with the core to begin with.
Instead of plays of the day, we should all try to guess what Falik's score is. Like when we do our show, what is it, Monday and Wednesday, and then in the next day, reveal what it was. Bring it up, screenshot. See how close we were. That would be funny.
So one of the funniest stories I heard recently, Rubio told me Falik gets mad at Rubio for one of his cores. So Rubio, when he plays soccer, DC, and you might understand this a little better, Rubio puts in a goalkeeper sometimes in his core, and Falik goes, "You can't put a goalkeeper in your core," and like gets on him. So the guy who doesn't put a quarterback in his core is getting on Rubio for putting a goalkeeper in his core. I mean, I understand the Falik logic is apparently goalkeeper doesn't matter as much when it comes to fantasy soccer. Rubio has different opinions on that, but I can't see Falik getting mad about that. What is your opinions on that?
No, yeah. Falik can't be mad. Falik can't be hating on anyone else's core, given what he throws out there sometimes. No quarterback. And he'll do like the pick one of three of these three wide receivers as well occasionally. You know he's on one when it's like a triple slash in one spot in the core. It's like, dude, the whole point is to narrow it down to your core plays.
I love the one of three captain, one of three captain, one of three captain. That's the best.
I did that one day in NFL for like 20 minutes, and I was like, screw this. I can't do this. I can't be like.
You can't be your senses, unfortunately.
Yeah, I talked myself into my senses.
Yeah. Falik's clearly not watching, because if he was, he would have chimed in by now and thrown some insults our way. So I love.
He's probably still at lunch. I had to send him some lunch bucks earlier today. I bet I must have forgotten about Kyle Kuzma, and Kuzma must have sucked in that game. So he's probably still at lunch right now.
Speaking of, I have to ask Falik for my money. It was Nurkic versus Jalen Duren on the early slate, and that won. So I'm going to slide into Falik's DMs right now. I'm going to send him the old.
I always InstaPay, or else I'm going to forget about it. So you got to tell me right away, or remind me right away, or I'm going to forget about it.
Did Falik use Venmo or PayPal? What was his use?
Venmo.
Okay, I thought you were going to be contrarian and tell me Cash App or something really stupid that I don't have. But I will shoot him a message.
I mailed him a check. That's what I did. I mailed him a check.
All right, that's enough Falik talk.
He'll get it. He'll get it in a week.
We'll keep it going. Golden State and the Brooklyn Nets are up next. 238 total in this one. Golden State favored by 1. The Warriors playing a little bit better as of late, kind of coinciding with the return of Draymond Green and the kind of breakout, frankly, of Jonathan Kuminga. A little bit slower game last time out, but has been certainly on the best stretch of his career these last, 6 or 7 games, playing big minutes and getting the job done. Up to 7K, though, now, AP. A little bit of sticker shock, at least for me, on Kuminga. We've seen some bigger games out of Draymond Green. think a pretty good matchup for him. He's getting all the minutes at the 5 essentially right now, starting at the 5. I assume that'll be the case again tonight. I think he's somewhat interesting against Brooklyn at 6,400. Steph Curry letting it fly. So, yeah, I think Golden State more interesting than they once were. They do get Dario Saric back for this game, which could potentially steal minutes away from Green or Kuminga, but I don't think it will if those guys are playing well. And then on the Brooklyn side of the ball, they will be without Ben Simmons, Daron Sharp, and Dorian Finney-Smith all going to miss this game. Looks like Dennis Smith should be available. He listed as questionable on DK, but I think he's going to be in there tonight. But yeah, big total, 238. Expected to be close. Warriors favored by 1. Should be a pretty good game for fantasy production. Andrew Wiggins also missing for Golden State. Missed that one. But certainly does open up some minutes there. Your thoughts, AP, Warriors, and Nets?
Yeah, this is going to be such a great game to target. One that we want, the one that I want to prioritize, on the slate, starting with bigs against Warriors. Like, in hindsight, in the last game, I mean, I didn't play any Capella. I think Capella, like, just because he doesn't play many minutes, but against the Warriors, we definitely should have considered, I think, he 40 piece or something in the limited time that he played. When he played them, AD put up like 59. I mean, these type of bigs can absolutely go off against a smaller Warriors team. So Nick Claxton, phenomenal play here. We also should get a really tight rotation. I expect Cam Thomas has been balling 36 minutes last game. Cameron Johnson's going to have a big role here. We know what Mikal Bridges does. The guy that I just continue to be under on is Dinwiddie. He's getting outplayed. And we've been talking about this for a while. He's just been getting outplayed by Cam Thomas. And even at times, we've seen Dennis Smith Jr. outplay him as well. He's still in my pool just because the price is way too cheap there on Dinwiddie. And he's still getting, 25 plus minutes. So I'm not like full fading him, but I definitely prefer spending up for Cam Thomas. I think Lonnie Walker's been a stud off the bench quietly. And this was with like Ben Simmons and everything, last game, 30 minutes off the bench, 30 minutes off the bench against the Suns, 27 against Utah. And he's productive. The usage is there. A 24% average offensive usage rate coming off the bench. He's been highly productive, double-digit field goal attempts in the last 3 games. I think this is a great spot. Lonnie Walker, I'm like so considering just we talked about it, Mangone on Saturday. We did the show. We brought up Saber Sim. Mangone did it again on Sunday. It was an awesome show. Mangone suffering there with Kurt. Kurt did pay attention, though. I'll give Kurt a little bit of credit. He was paying attention. He had some great takes on that show. Shout out to Kurt. But I talked about my style and my strategy, and I like to get aggressive. Like Lonnie Walker, as a value coming off the bench, there is some risk there. But at 4K, I just think he's such a smash play, especially here against the Warriors. Absolutely love him. So for me, I have my 3 max per team rule, and I want a lot of the Nets. I want exposure to a lot of them, and it's going to be kind of a mix and match type of situation. But I will be under on Dinwiddie. I'll most likely, I saw Dennis Smith was getting some ownership. Oh, man, I'm really torn on that. He's just been average. I would rather just take a bigger stand on Cam Thomas, Cameron Johnson, Nick Claxton, Lonnie Walker also, and then also Mikal Bridges. So I could see myself on the Nets side having a ton of exposure to them, but being underweight on Dinwiddie and even like Royce O'Neal slightly and Dennis Smith Jr. in favor for those other plays I talked about. On the Warriors side, this is going to be – so Chris Paul obviously still out. Andrew Wiggins doubtful. I'm working on the assumption that he's out. Sarge is back, but it's not like they play Sarge a lot. I would expect Brandon Podziemski sliding into the starting lineup. This dude can just get it done in so many different ways. I mean, 38 minutes last game against Atlanta, 34 against the Grizzlies, the Grizzlies scrubs. He almost put up a 50-piece in that game. So Pods is another one that it's going to be chalk. And again, I'm fine with eating a lot of this chalk because if it's good chalk and if it checks a lot of boxes for me, I just make it a flag plant and do whatever I can to make sure I'm overweight the field. So Podziemski, another guy that I'm going to be extremely overweight on. So again, when you think about this slate, a lot of really good plays at that guard position, which leaves for me like Luka and Kyrie, even Donnie Mitch, kind of in a questionable area, and a lot of good plays also at the power forward and center slate. So the slate it grades out as a somewhat easy one, but again, we know that when the night's over, it never pans out that way. But Podziemski, definitely a guy that I have interest in. Kuminga, I'm curious to see what you guys say. I still like him, but he's $7K now. He's fairly priced, in my opinion. Klay Thompson, you could take a shot on him, but I never like him that much. I've been playing Steph Curry a lot more. He against the Hawks, he was someone I got overweight, or it was either Philly or the Hawks. I can't remember that far back anymore, but he's been playing good. I mean, if you look at 3 of his last 4 games, he's put up 60 plus. And he's never owned. He's like never owned, and he's still relatively cheap at 9,400. So again, Steph Curry, another guy that I'm going to be looking at.
Yeah, this is the more we look at this game, the better it looks. I think Brooklyn played an 8-man rotation last game that was out without Dennis Smith Jr., but with Ben Simmons, who I think Smith Jr. kind of just takes those minutes. Should be a tight rotation for Brooklyn. And Mangone, I mean, look who, especially without Wiggins, look who Golden State's going to play all the minutes at the 1 through 3 positions, right? It's Curry, it's Klay Thompson, and now it's Pod, right? That's not exactly a defensive trio. And I think these Nets guards, particularly Cam Thomas and Lonnie Walker, guys who can get buckets, I think they're in a really, really good spot in this game. So I'm with AP pretty high on Brooklyn. And, man, the Golden State side looks pretty good too. I'm in on Pod. I like Draymond a little bit. Curry, I think, is a good play. Really, really good game here. Your thoughts, Mangone?
Yeah, Golden State is in that bucket of, hey, teams that we want to target. And Brooklyn has good price tags, right? I mean, Mikal Bridges at 7.2. It's not a bad price. It does feel a little bit of a cash game play or condom play, but I don't think he's bad. So I don't mind him. If Tobias Harris is in, I think I prefer him for $200 more. Cam Thomas, I know what his upside is, and I kind of like him a little bit over Bridges. I think he's a pretty good play. Dinwiddie is the one I think I'm trying my best to stay away from. I'll admit the price goes down, and the projections push it at times. And you really got to think about it and say, is this worth playing at this price? I keep saying no, and I think I'm going to continue to say no, and it's worked out well for me, so I'm okay with it. I don't mind these cheap values in Dennis Smith Jr. and Lonnie Walker. I don't think they're bad value plays at low ownership, even Royce O'Neal. These are guys you can mix and match, but you don't want to have 2 or 3 of these guys on your team. I think you want to be a little bit cautious with it. I know we were talking about it in Discord chat how a lot of the optimizers are pushing 2 or 3 of these guys on teams. Don't feel the need to play all these guys. I think there's good plays and good price tags, but it doesn't mean they're all going to get there. Cam Johnson at 5K, certainly he has a ceiling at the price, not the worst play. And then Nick Claxton at 6'9". I don't think he's bad, but I like other cheap value centers where I don't think I'm going to get there. Golden State side of the ball, though, there are some interesting plays. Klay Thompson at 6K. I think it's another one that looks like a really intriguing price, but I'm not buying it. Dario Saric is back too. Wiggins could be back. I don't think he's going to, but he has the possibility to. Not super excited about him. If I play anyone here, it's Kuminga and Draymond Green. I think those are some really interesting forward options that I would consider on this slate. And at 9.4, Steph Curry does have the upside and ceiling. We've talked about it. Look at his last 4 games, 60 plus DK points. The guy has a nice ceiling at the price. Definitely someone that you should consider in your GPPs.
All right, that's Golden State and Brooklyn. One more game to talk about before we do. Reminder, get the likes up. We do appreciate it. Over 400 watching. Like count a little bit hurtful. So go ahead and hit that like button. It does help us out. Helps us bring you this show free of charge each and every day. And if you do want to join the Winner Circle over at Runpier Sports, we do have a promo code going right now, RPS15. We'll get you 15% off your first weekly or monthly payment. Obviously, NBA in full swing. UFC, golf is heating up. CBB, I mean, any sport, we've got it covered. One price, all sports, great deal. Promo code RPS15 if you do want to join us. All right, let's get to the last game of the night. It is Toronto and the New Orleans Pelicans. Injury news for Toronto. We know RJ Barrett is going to miss this game, as will Jonte Porter. Jakob Poeltl, though, is back in there, should be in the starting lineup. And in Pelicans news, waiting on Zion, Herb Jones, and Larry Nance Jr. all listed questionable in this one. Obviously, pretty significant news on the Pelicans side. I will say the Pelicans favored by 10.5 in this one, 230 total. Kind of indicates most or all of those guys should be in there, which I do kind of expect those guys to play, but obviously we will see. We'll start with you again, AP, the Pelicans and the Raptors. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, man, all the games are going to be done, and it's going to be early tonight. I just noticed the times on this. I kind of like that. I'm getting old. I kind of like that. This is the game just kind of on the surface, macro point of view. I find myself underweight on. But again, you gotta dive in a little bit deeper and make sure you're not overlooking things. So Herb Jones, Larry Nance, they're both questionable, but they both practice. When we see that, I kind of work under the assumption that they are going to play. Zion, the guy, truly questionable. So I would imagine that we would have that. The problem is that news could hit right at 7:30, and if Zion's out, then it's, what are your pivot options? I mean, from a price standpoint, if you could get up to Brandon Ingram or down to Emmanuel quickly, I mean, that's an option. But again, when I look at this slate and when I look at power forward specifically, Okongwu, check. Cam Johnson, you can play him at power forward. Anthony Davis. So I don't like Zion at 7,500 is definitely intriguing. I mean, he can definitely pay off that tag. But for me, as far as risk weighing, do I want to wait? Is it worth the reward? From an ownership leverage standpoint, I'm not convinced that it is, considering the other options that we have at that position. So again, right now I'm not too concerned about Zion. I find myself under on him. Brandon Ingram, I have more interest in. Love the matchup. Shooting guard, small forward, that positional flexibility that we talk about, and his price. Whenever he's in the 7K range, I feel like that's kind of the sweet spot for his price. Larry Nance, I have he's productive either way, but again, 3,200, potentially other better value in the spot. I don't see any of these guys as must play, but it becomes interesting if, let's just say randomly, Herb Jones, Larry Nance, Zion, what if they all get ruled out? Then it's a more interesting, intriguing situation, because I think that would most likely come after the 7 Eastern lock window. So for me, it's slate by slate, situation by situation. If that did happen, I would then value those swap options a little bit more, because I think the field would be underlooking them a little bit. So that's an opportunity to keep an eye on, taking notes, just hey, if this situation happens, how do we react? What do we do? Because we've seen this with the Pelicans. Trey Murphy becomes a smash play then. Najee Marshall would be an upgrade in that spot. Brandon Ingram, especially the Raptors. We talked about it. With the changes that they've made, this team is not as good defensively at all. We've seen that. Pirtle being back helps. They're starting Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown, when he's motivated, he's a good defender. So they could get that defensive swag back. But obviously that's been lacking ever since the trade. And then on the other side, I mean, Gary Trent, he looks fine, but I'm never excited to play him. Scotty Barnes, everyone's received price decreases except for Scotty Barnes, it seems like. This guy's been priced sky high forever. So I'm fine being underweight on this Raptors team, especially if Herb Jones plays. Good defender. And when you have Zion, Herb, Joval there in the paint, I mean, this team, the Pelicans are good defensively and not a team that we want to target.
All right, that's AP, Pelicans, and Raptors, and I'm kind of with it, or Mangone. I don't know how many spots I'm going to have left for this game. There's a pretty good 2-game slate that actually starts. The night slate starts just half an hour after the normal one. Should be some good overlay in the satellites in that one.
Hey, where's our guy? Where's our attorney? Or down in Texas, our guy Jake Swells. He needs you. Do you remember that guy's name? The criminal attorney at law.
But I remember I remember who you're talking
Hopefully
about.
He's watching.
Yeah. Potential news that Paul Reed may be out or limited, which we'll go back to that, Mangone, because it might be time to load up some Mr. Mo Bamba and see how that goes for us. But before we get there, let's finish off Toronto and Pelicans. Go ahead, Mangone.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Mo Bamba stuff. I'm not completely sold on Mo Bamba, but we'll get to it. So this game is not one I absolutely love. Scotty Barnes is fine, right? Like any contrarian stud up top, you can make a case for, but like I just think it's more crowded now, right? I mean, the price tags went up on some of these guys. RJ Barrett is out, right? That's fair, but I still think it's a bit crowded where I'm not in love with him. If I played anyone, it might be a Quickly. I think I can make a case for him more at 7K. I would say Jakob Poeltl at 6K. I mean, the price is good. They might need his size, and Valanciunas isn't that great, so at least defensively. So I think you can make a case for that. And then this is a big piece of news, right? Because Larry Nance, Herb Jones, and Zion. And this could open up a lot, right? It could open up a Najee Marshall as a value at 3.5K. Keep in mind, this is the last game of the slate, and you could be locked into a lot of plays where you're not able to get to some of these guys if we don't have the news in time. You could make a case for a Jordan Hawkins if all those guys are out. You can make a case for a Trey Murphy possibly. I know he's on a minutes limit. I will call that out. Like, it doesn't look like he's on a minutes limit, but he's on like a 26 to 28 minutes limit. They are not letting him go above that. So that's something else to keep in mind with Trey Murphy. But it's an important piece of news, and that would open up some value on Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum to unlock their ceilings in this game. And it could also help out a Dyson Daniels. You could see him start and play a pretty good role. So there are some values that could open up, but also they could not be worth it. And then you could just feel like an idiot if you kind of fade some of these earlier guys. So it's something to kind of mention. But that's kind of my take on that. DC, you can set up the Paul Reed stuff because if you pull up popcorn from the game before, I'm just not totally buying it. And of course, the Tobias Harris news is going to be super important, but it's Mo Bamba is not as easy of a plug and play as I think people think.
Yeah, we'll see with Reed. He was sick last game, I guess, and played 15 minutes in that one. Bamba played 15, and then KJ Martin was the guy who played center as well. So if Reed is ruled out, and again, it sounds like he's probably going to play a few minutes. Not quite clear at this point, AP. I mean, if Bamba starts at 4,500, you'd have to consider him, good matchup too against Dallas, and he's a really good point per minute player. A little bit interesting off the bench too. Your thoughts, AP, on the Reed situation with Philadelphia? Obviously, we'll have that news prior to lock.
They threw the towel in early, like it just, I mean, they had their scrubs playing like the entire fourth quarter. I mean, it was Korkmaz played like almost the whole second half, which was insane. But it was KJ Martin, Korkmaz, Jaden Springer, Smith, Ricky Council. Who? I have no idea. I would love it if someone came in chat and it's like, you have no idea who that is? It's always
I'm sure someone's out there, yeah.
Ricky Council is Arkansas native. He played at Arkansas University, so there you go.
So I always go to Stevie Boyd. Stevie knows all these guys, all the your college. What I always go to Stevie Boyd.
But these guys aren't
what is this guy?
The point I know is all these guys played the second half, right? Like if you're going to actually look, and I just posted a chart because K Fallick's not doing his job in posting charts. The first half minutes are what matters. And if you look at the first half, Daniel House and KJ Martin played some of those center minutes. And Daniel House got a bulk of those. Also, keep in mind, during that game, it was Maxey, Morris, Oubre, Reed, and Daniel House. Well, what if Tobias Harris plays? If Tobias Harris plays, that's going to obviously mess up some of the minutes for these other guys that we talked about. So it's not as clear. It's not clear going to be plug and play Mo Bamba. Now, if Mo Bamba happens to start, okay, if he does, yes, you can make an argument that he would be a good play. And you could argue maybe they are going to play those center minutes between those options. Maybe Paul Reed just comes off the bench and plays that role. But a counter argument would be, Mo Bamba could start, but we could see the ending of the game. We could see Mo Bamba not even play or Paul Reed and then go smaller. So just be a little cautious with someone like Mo Bamba.
The other thing too, I mean, just thinking about Philly, like Luka and Kyrie are going to be able to get to the rim. They're going to be able to get whatever they want. They're going to be able to get whatever they want against this Philly team. So I don't know. I think I'm going to over project them and then create a group rule that just says one or the other, which kind of naturally will force them in. But obviously not together.
I'll say this: if we get the Bamba news that he's starting, he's going to come in massively owned, like, I don't know, 60, 70%. And not without, still a good play, I think, but not without risk at that point. Just my take on Bamba. Let's get to the plays of the day. We'll start with UAP, or gentleman's play of the day.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with. I mean, it's a tough day for plays of the day because it's like you want to pick a good play, and I mean, it's mega chalk everywhere. But I'm going Tyrese Maxey. I think it's a good bounce back spot. I like targeting this backcourt when Kyrie and Luka are playing. The spread's close. I think, honestly, like I think the overs like is a good bet here too. Like there's no way that this Philly team stops the likes of Kyrie and Luka, and I think to keep it close, Maxey, Tobias if he plays, but really Tyrese Maxey is going to have a big game, and that 9,100 price tag maybe keeps ownership down, especially when you consider, Kyrie Irving, Donnie Mitch, Luka, like Curry, Cam Thomas, Brandon Podziemski. Like there's just so many plays at this guard position that you got to consider.
All right, Tyrese Maxey, love the call. I'll go next. I don't want to get sniped by Mangone. I'm going to my guy, Brandon Miller, going to be starting in a big role here for the Charlotte Hornets. Good matchup against the Lakers, and I think he'll be bombing away from deep all game long in this one. So Brandon Miller, the mom's basement play of the day, got the Mangone hype buzzer. You love to see that. Were you going to swipe Miller from me, Mangone? And who's your play of the day?
No, I was not, and it was not me dropping the hype thing. That was AP this time. So typically,
me having fun.
Yep, it was not me, and I'm always all for it, so I'm fine with it. I've gone back and forth on who the guy should be. I think it's one of these guys in the Atlanta Hawks game. I think it's one of those Clippers. I mean, there are missing someone like Zubac. That's not nothing, right? So I've gone back and forth between Harden and Kawhi. Let's go with Kawhi, just because I think with some of the news that we've gotten, some of the guard values will open up. So I'm going to go with Kawhi Leonard as my play of the day. It'll be a nice contrarian spin that people will miss out on.
All right, we got Maxey,
Like it.
Brandon Miller, and Kawhi Leonard as the plays of the day. We've got Up to Lock show coming up in about 10 minutes for members. Obviously, get in the Discord, and we'll be discussing these plays.
Oh, I got to say one other thing real quick. So we switched up the show schedule just a little bit. Football's done now. We're getting the big guy in. So Big T's taking my spot. So we're shuffling things around a little bit. I was just looking at the show schedule. So Big T is going to be on next Wednesday. So again, I believe it's you two and Big T on Wednesdays moving forward. And I believe he's on Tuesday too. So the people going to get Big T next 2 days, and then he heads to Vegas. So I thought with Kansas City getting to the Super Bowl, I thought he was maybe going to give me the tickets or bring me along, but not the case. Not the case, DC.
Not the case. And we'll enjoy
I'm like, Tony, give them to me in DC. Like, let us go, and that would be dangerous. Like, we could be absolutely blitzed in Vegas watching the Super Bowl. Like,
yeah,
I think my wife would be very concerned.
I probably remember the first quarter, and that's about it if I went to Vegas for the Super Bowl. So I'll watch it at home. Much safer environment for old DC. That'll do it, though. Up to Lock show coming up. We do appreciate you guys watching. Hit the like button on the way out. We will be back tomorrow with the boss man, Big T, same time, same place for AP. For Sweet Travis Mangone, I'm DC, and we'll check you later.